Something massive is happening around Warner Brothers and therefore its games division, and it's happening fast enough that the industry just has no idea how to talk about it. Warner Brothers Discovery was right in the middle of tearing itself apart structurally, trying to clean up its balance sheet in the middle of that process, and suddenly Netflix jumped in and said, hey, we're just gonna buy you. That includes film, TV, streaming, and the whole games division. And on top of that, the second that news hit, Paramount and Skydance has tossed a hostile counteroffer of their own in.
You wanted me. Here I am.
Because apparently everybody wants Batman. I mean, that's not really what's going on here, but like, as far as I'm concerned, that's really all that matters. Anyway, at this exact moment, WB Games, Rocksteady, NetherRealm, Monolith, Avalanche, Traveler's Tales, the whole stack could end up at Netflix or under another buyer entirely, or stuck in limbo if everything collapses. We have no idea. It's such a mess that people can't agree on who owns what because the buyer isn't settled and the seller was reorganizing mid-deal. Without exaggeration, this is one of the wildest corporate shakeups to ever happen to a major video game publisher in at least a decade. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, what the hell is going on with Warner Brothers Games? So before we get going, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a quick, hey, most of you aren't subscribed, could you please click subscribe? It helps us out a ton. We hope it helps you see some stuff that you want to see. And I don't want to get too caught up on it. I just want to say thank you for clicking subscribe and let's get on with this. So what Netflix is bidding on isn't a studio deal. It's not a licensing deal. This is Netflix owning Warner Brothers writ large. So the deal includes Warner Brothers Pictures, HBO, Max. We don't need to try to explain the HBO Max thing. Nobody can. It includes their animation division and yes, the full Warner Brothers Games division. There's no carve-outs, no mobile-only rumor nonsense. It's for the whole kit and caboodle, and that means Netflix is trying to absorb one of the largest vertically integrated entertainment pipelines in the world. Films, TV, distribution, streaming architecture, and a games publisher with multiple AAA studios. And they aren't doing it because they suddenly want to become the next PlayStation. They're doing it because whatever the hell Warner Brothers Discovery was trying to do basically packaged all of the modern, non-legacy cable stuff into a company, and Netflix was like, oh, we want that. Like, we don't want the linear TV stuff. Like, it doesn't make any sense for us. Everything else, though, being in a nice, clean package, so we'll buy that. But here's the interesting thing. Netflix swooped in with a bid that actually doesn't really value Warner Brothers Games at all. Some headlines even put it that they value it at zero. I don't really think that's the case. Netflix is putting up $83 billion, and I would assume with the understanding that they get WB Games, I mean, that's enough in their minds, I guess. I don't know. Netflix co-CEO told investors that they consider the gaming stuff relatively minor compared to the grand scheme of things, and I guess a bunch of places ran with it, saying they just valued it at zero, which is just not true at all. I think a lot of people want to view this as a massive and immediate threat, and in many ways, they're not wrong, but they are also exaggerating things that have been said, I think, at very least partially for sensation. But what exactly does that mean for the studios, the franchises, and the intellectual properties being bought? Well, it just needs to be said that whether or not Netflix cares or wanted to, if this deal goes through, they become one of the biggest game publishers. Warner Brothers Games isn't a loose collection of licenses. It's a AAA machine. Rocksteady, NetherRealm, Monolith, even though it's not really a company anymore, is still technically a thing that exists on paper anyways, and it's owned by WB. Avalanche, Traveler's Tale Games, WB Montreal, WB New York, WB some other places. These are all studios with decades of shipped titles, global sales, and built-in workflows. They are attached to an IP library that most publishers would kill for. You got Mortal Kombat, Hogwarts Legacy, the Wizarding World, the Lego games, which are just a license to print money, Middle-earth. I mentioned Monolith specifically because this means Netflix are now the owners of the Nemesis system. And while previously Netflix has kind of dipped its toe into gaming and it's failed spectacularly because of pure hubris, the silliness of Netflix attempting to do the exact same thing that Google had just failed at it doing, it's pure hubris. I mean, it wasn't the exact same thing. It was close enough. Like, if Google can't do it, you can't do it, okay? They retreated back into more mobile and casual-oriented games, but now they own the studios behind Arkham, Injustice, Shadow of Mordor, Hogwarts Legacy, Mortal Kombat. None of that is mobile filler. None of that is experimental cloud streaming stuff. That's the backbone of a multiple billion-dollar IP ecosystem. And essentially, that places the entire gaming division in the suspended animation because this is weird, but the strange reality of this is that Netflix says games aren't their priority. Publicly, Netflix executives have been downplaying the value of WB Games. They have been framing it as nice to have, but not central to the deal. The actual target is the film and TV pipeline, which, to be frank, I do have to say, Warner Brothers as a company could use Netflix's organizational and management skills, and Netflix could certainly use a lot of the creativity that is housed at Warner Brothers. Both of those companies essentially don't have the other thing that the other company has. Netflix is just the most creatively bankrupt entity of all time, and Warner Brothers is just a shit show in terms of management. I mean, all told, there is a potential for a good outcome here. I'm not necessarily banking on it, but that's also purely related to movies and that type of stuff. Much more linear, non-interactive content. Now, yes, Netflix has built out a mobile and subscription-based game offering ecosystem, but nothing about their current strategy suggests they were even thinking of suddenly owning Rocksteady and NetherRealm. It's kind of a gaming empire by proxy situation. So we have a weird scenario where WB Games could end up with a parent company that isn't necessarily hostile towards them, but isn't invested in them, which is odd considering it is an investment situation, like literally in every fundamental definition of investment. Usually when you want to buy a company, you have a reason. I mean, and the reason is, of course, the rest of WB, but the games division is a multi-billion-dollar operation that Netflix seems to kind of be treating as technically part of like the appendix. Not something that they really want to think about unless it starts causing them pain. I don't know, maybe a little better than the appendix, because what does the appendix do other than eventually need to come out or just not anything at all? I don't know. Hopefully they do not see WB Games as the appendix in the metaphorical WB Netflix merger human body. But to be frank, it's one of the possible futures for WB Games under Netflix, or whoever, because I'm not saying Paramount Skydance has no chance here, and there could be a dark horse that appears as well. But on one end of the spectrum, Netflix could treat WB Games the way Microsoft has treated Bethesda. They could fold in the studios into a broader content strategy, they could fund ambitious projects, they could use games as a pillar of subscriber growth, or they could just continue making a ton of money because they own a thing that can make a ton of money. In that world, you could see bigger Mortal Kombat expansions, bigger budgets for games, live service support that isn't dog shit. I mean, Netflix could grow a backbone and could start acting like a true platform holder. Like, it's possible, but it's also possible they attempt to become content landlords, passive ones at that. Projects could continue because they're already underway, why not? But there's no strong slate planning, no big push for innovation, and no appetite for long-term risk. That type of stuff is why you saw the Nemesis system, which we constantly bring up here at gameranx because we would love to see somebody just do it again, maybe better. But there's also the nightmare scenario, like WB Games could be too expensive to consider worth keeping on as is. They could consolidate studios, they could cancel projects, people could lose jobs. And it's really not on the studios themselves. It's kind of just whatever Netflix decides they want. Now, if you ask me, considering the movie industry has become a gradually less and less lucrative industry to be running around in, while the gaming industry has slowly become a much more profitable situation to be involved in, I would think that the gaming division might be something that they care a little more about. And it might be that they're sort of hiding their power level in terms of how much they want the gaming division for reasons. I mean, they do have to pass a federal regulator to get this deal to happen, and they could be trying to act like the gaming just doesn't matter and that it's a happy accident, but we're now the biggest game company this side of the streaming river. I don't know. But in order to make any kind of judgment call on that, we have to talk about why it's happening. Now, Warner Brothers did not want out of gaming. That's not what's going on here. WB Games has actually been one of Warner's most profitable divisions. That's despite their recent missteps. The real driver here is the broader collapse of Warner Brothers Discovery as a unified company. After years of debt from the AT&T merger, failed streaming pivots, investor pressure, and constant restructuring, WBD finally just reached a point where the only way forward was to split itself into pieces. One half would be the linear Discovery TV networks, the cable channels, legacy broadcast assets that just don't fit into a modern media strategy, and the other half is the quote-unquote valuable stuff, the Warner Brothers Studio Group, streaming tech, and WB Games. And once you create that clean, modern asset unit, that's something somebody wants, and Netflix saw an opening. They clearly aren't the only ones that want it, but this is an entire IP library and production pipeline that you can just outright buy if you happen to be a company that can throw $83 billion around. I obviously can't do that. Although that would be fun, wouldn't it? Old Falcon owning Warner Brothers, yeah. Paramount and Skydance obviously saw the exact same thing, and they're like, no, actually, we kind of want that rather than Netflix having it. It's arguable that Paramount Skydance actually has a purpose beyond money in owning it. Netflix owning the WB IP catalog is, to be frank, going to alter every other company's market position, whereas Paramount Skydance owning it keeps a lot of things as they are now. I mean, obviously, they become a lot more powerful, but Netflix owning it changes a lot of things immediately. And you probably didn't hear me use the word gaming a lot in that little stretch of time. It's because, well, it's just collateral here, at least if you listen to what everybody is saying. Again, wouldn't be shocked if there is some downplaying because the intent is to get past regulators, but what does that mean for us? People who play games. Well, if you play any live service games that are owned by WB, as we are just sitting here waiting for this deal to wrap up, everything in terms of roadmaps, budgets, long-term plans, that's frozen. There's no way anyone can make any of those decisions while something like this is going on. And to be frank, even if they could, Netflix could immediately reverse them. Now, I don't know if you can tell by the fact that we started a whole single-player gaming-based 1% club and a new podcast in the form of the Falcon Show. I don't know if you can tell based on that I don't really care a lot about live service games. By the way, you should join the 1% club and listen to the Falcon Show. It's a fun time. Just click the join button and it's yours for $5 a month, baby. But with single player games, like, all right, yeah, WB has a lot of cool stuff under its umbrella, like allegedly a new Arkham game from Rocksteady, all the future Lego titles, any Mortal Kombat stuff, Hogwarts Legacy 2, and anything intended to come after that. That's all a lot more up in the air because those are much more finite projects. I've talked a lot in recent videos about how if companies just didn't want to make all the money but wanted to continue expanding their value, profiting, the thing to do is to make finite single-player games that take a lot of effort but have an end in sight, and you sell them and people buy them, and because there's actual effort and passion behind it, it works and you make money. That's not what these companies want to do. They want to do these more passive landlord situations where they set up shop somewhere and rent little IP-related things at you. DLC and microtransactions and subscriptions and a bunch of crap as far as I'm concerned. The Netflix model, as they call it, which is, it doesn't bode well for what Netflix wants to do. Let's just say they named the model after them. Their whole business has been sucking up IP and licenses and sitting on it. And end of the day, what's happening to Warner Brothers games, at least as far as we can tell, isn't really about games at all. I do want to continue to leave that space clear in case they're just acting that way to avoid regulatory oversight. It wouldn't be the first time that's happened, but if we're going at face value, that's basically what they've said. Once the dust settles, whoever ends up with Warner Brothers is going to inherit one of the strongest teams and IP catalogs in the industry, and the question is whether they treat that as a foundation or as a liability. Until then, everything's in flux. I'm sure the work is continuing at all these companies, but the direction, any decisions that need to be made, they're all on pause. As soon as there's a final owner, we'll know whether this becomes a reboot for WB or just another chapter in the long, weird story of how corporate consolidation keeps gradually turning everything into one thing. What do you think? Leave us a comment, let us know. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications, and as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. Subscribe to the 1% Club by clicking join down there, and listen to The Falcon Show. We're having a blast over there. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time, right here on gameranx.